can I talk about one thing, please?
It's half your show. You talk about whatever you want.
So, the thing we talked about from the release wave?
I want to let everybody know before we started recording, Ulrika said she had a monster and something else. So, but I know what you're talking. The thing is,
not something else, but it's now live, and I tried it out, and it's just, I almost cried when I saw it. It was so beautiful. You just go in through this interface, and it's the. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform Boost podcast, your timely source of Power Platform news and updates with your hosts, Nick Dolman and Ulrika Ackerbeck.
Fair enough. So all of this AI stuff that we've been talking about, that I've been talking to you about, that I'm talking to my wife about, that I've been talking to friends about that aren't even in this space. There's been an overwhelming amount of information. There's people in businesses trying to apply it to their businesses. People that I've heard of people that say, I don't want to do anything about AI. I'm not going to worry about it. You can't make me do it. You fire me before you make me use it. To other people that seem to be all in. Yes, AI is great. And then you kind of trying to zero in on what it is they're doing. And so much information, so many things. I think I don't think we're struggling. I just think that we're at a buffet right now. And you go to a restaurant and you see all the food in the buffet and you're like, where do I even start with all this? And then you just load up your plate and then all of a sudden your plate's almost overflowing. This is where we're at right now. I think at the stage of all this AI information and things like that. So where is your head at this week in terms of AI?
Yeah, because it comes from a place where we look at the show notes and we recognize that over half of the things that are in there are related to AI or Copilot, and then we go, what do we do? Do we keep this very much a Power Platform specific podcast because then Copilot is included in the platform, or do we kind of try to manage it? And I think we're both at a place where there's so many important things that are happening around Copilot Studio and that as a product that we have to touch on in order to and to spread the word to people out there that maybe not have time in their daily work to keep on top of these things. And I still want to do that, even though maybe we don't touch on the other products of the platform as much. Because right now, the news and the updates and the announcements that we see, it's full on around OpenAI, about Copilot Studio, and about agents. And so I think what you're going to see is that we follow where the news and the updates and the new capabilities are. And that's what we're going to talk about and be preoccupied with. Now, when Fabric came along, that was very much on our radar. We've talked a lot about Foundry, and there's so many things that come in that are new that we talk about. So I think this is just natural for us to cover.
And we're looking for feedback too from the listeners. Like, do you want to just hear? I mean, I know some of you just want to hear the news and updates, and you probably skip over the banter that we have about the weekends and the weather and all that. And I know that I've also heard from a lot of you basically saying, yeah, just hearing you two talk about it makes me feel better in my position where I'm at trying to figure this out as well. So, but definitely provide this feedback. And, and again, we always say this podcast is really just to give us an excuse to chat with each other. But really at the end of the day, it's really sharing with the community and engaging this community, making sure we all as a community work together, and rising tides make all boats float up, or some bad thing of that saying. So
how about this? For the future episodes, what we'll do is we'll share with you the kind of links that we send to each other anyways, because our WhatsApp chat is full of links back and forth, and it's a crazy hot mess of everything. So we'll keep it to the tech related things. But I mean, the things that preoccupy us, the things that make us want to share with one another, that's what we're going to share with our listeners going forward. So that's you. And that's what we're going to do. That's a promise that we make. And that's kind of where we draw the line, I think.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So I think just to kick this off in terms of things like that, there was a post by our friend Jukka Niiranen. Of course, everybody knows Jukka. And to me, I don't know what it was, but maybe it was the mood I was in or when I read it. But to me, it was just sort of like, yes, this to me kind of hit. Now, I'm not going to, we'll share the link to the post. But specifically, I'm just going to basically just bring up what he said. I'm going to take a line out of what he said so that you'll see the whole post. But basically he said, because AI as we know it today is not about products or solutions, it is not going to magically allow you to increase productivity or replace employees by signing up for service X from vendor Y. It's not a top-down digital transformation initiative. It's a bottom-up revolution. Just like low code is, only this time nothing is sacred or safe. The whole post itself kind of gave me chills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because on, this is LinkedIn, right? So you see that in one post and you read it and you go into grumpy Finn mode with Jukka, and then you scroll down and then suddenly you hit global enterprise American marketing with from Steve Murdu, when what he's posting is exactly what Jukka says this is not about, because he's now got a new suite of services and products all aligned from AI out on all the things Jukka says you cannot, or this is not what it's about. So I think that is my LinkedIn feed at the moment. You just have two sides of the spectrum going ding, 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 ding. Yeah. And my brain is following this as a ping pong ball all over the place. And I read Jukka's post and I go, yes, yes, you got it. I'm on board. And I read what Steve's doing. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's what we should do. Why are we doing this? And then I read to the next one and I look at what Femke's doing and I'm going, what? I should do that. And then, yeah, anyone else, raise a hand, because I think this is what our feed is like these days. And I don't think the point is to settle. The time is not to settle. I think that's the point. The time now is to embrace both what Jukka's saying and what Steve is talking about and producing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think the bottom line is whether we like it or not, AI is going to change our jobs. Is it going to come for our jobs? I don't think so, but our job is going to change. And this brings up to, and again, what I liked about Jukka's thing, it gave a very much of the kind of that movie Hackers feel, like Hack the Planet. That was something I actually posted on it. It's about, using this stuff. And he talks about vibe coding. And I know our feed is full of what vibe coding is and what it isn't. There's the naysayers like going, well, vibe coding can't do this. And the others going, this is going to change everything. And I think I even posted on one of Steve's things. It's like, okay, programmers, pro coders, AI is not going to come for your job. Steve is. Now, we've been saying that for years with low code solutions and things like that. So I think at the end of the day, everybody's safe. But for me, when I'm doing development tasks, my Visual Studio Code desktop right now, GitHub Copilot is open, and I'm experimenting with different models and things like that. And I am actually really impressed it comes up with some absolute garbage sometimes, but it also comes up with some really good points, and it goes through and highlights the changes. So not only am I able to dive into things, I'm learning new things like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. That's really cool. I can apply that to other places. I mean, because I'm coming from a place of understanding code, if I didn't know what I was doing at all, then I would have to really break it down into smaller and smaller chunks in order to be successful, which there's going to be a line of diminishing returns in terms of being able to develop code, understanding code, and get it to all work together. And of course, this is going to get smarter and smarter. And of course, hopefully these AI agents are also going to incorporate things like security and governance, like all those other important side pieces that I think sometimes we tend to forget a little bit. So anyways, it's really I don't know where I'm going with all of this, but in terms of the tools we're using every day, I kind of got into a mindset, okay, I need to use this every day. So a couple quick wins for me this week. We were working on, you and I were both working on something with trying to wrap our heads around some multi-factor authentication changes that are coming through and how that's going to affect all of this. I went through and applied into a reasoning model of doing some research. Here's my problem. Here's what I need. Here's your role. Here's this. And it broke it down into a chart format, breaking down what it is that we needed to do, why we needed to do it, the impact of all of this, and then even allowed it to ask some questions and things like that. To me, that was really powerful. I shared that with the team. And so that was something we kind of worked and collaborated with a little bit together and tried to kind of sort all of these things out.
And can I just say something before you continue? Because what I loved about that was that actually it also looked into the future. It said, today, this is the limitation. This is what you need to do. But please make sure that you keep a close eye on the release notes or the release plan, because this is changing and Microsoft will soon enable this and this and that. And also, by the way, make sure you don't check this checkbox. So it was kind of, it was business oriented, it was solution oriented, it was detail oriented, and it was kind of future proofing its own solution. I loved it. It was brilliant. When you put that in the chat, I thought, you just saved my ass, because that was what I was just going to do, right? Because you just beat me to it. And I love it. And the fact that we just share it across, because I think there's a certain degree of prompt gatekeeping going on as well in companies today, right? You want to be the smartest kid on the block. You want to be the guy that's the best prepared for a meeting. You want to do your own research with ChatGPT, whatever AI service you use. You want to go into the setting and be the star. So I feel like more and more people are kind of gatekeeping and not sharing, because I don't see what you did as often as I should at this point. So I'm not sure if that, strikes a chord with anyone. Maybe we could have a conversation in the chat, kind of how often do you share your stuff with other people, or maybe kind of holding your cards close to your chest. I don't know.
Well, this is what I've been starting to do. Is like, it's even in one of my presentations I was putting together. I'm going to Dynamics Con this week, and I thought, and this is on Power Platform Pipelines, which I'm presenting on. But anyways, I thought, it'd be great if I did a slide comparing all the different types of ways to deploy solutions in Power Platform. And I know there's people at blog posts and different things, and I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, and I kind of gave it the parameters. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I want to compare. And it came back and asked me questions. Do you want to stick just to Microsoft solutions, or you want to incorporate third-party solutions? And, how detailed do you want to go? And I put it all together, and it presented me with a table that I basically cut and paste and put on the slide. And then I also put, here is the prompt I used to generate the slide to share with the people. So it's not like it's making me look smart. It's basically going, hey, you guys are empowered with this information. You can go forward as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, I think we'll see that a lot, where it's kind of show your work, show your prompt. Because with sharing these prompts, then people can take that and apply it to their own scenarios and learn from that as well. So to me, this is, look I would say, look at us using AI on a day-to-day basis, So
yeah. No, and but I recognize that, and also the frameworks, right? So you have some just kind of. I know you were going to share all the fancy things you can go back to that, but also keeping an eye on time and on the stuff we want to share, because this really ties into the next link that we have here, which is yours. And this is something you shared with me, a video on YouTube. So because I also have a bit of a thing with that. Do you want to share what that's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it was a podcast called Learn It All. It's on YouTube. It's not on Spotify, but it's on some of the other ones. But we'll put the link to the YouTube link for sure. And it's basically an interview with someone called Geoff Woods. You may or may not have heard of Geoff Woods. He's written a book about AI, which I'm actually reading, or I'm audiobooking right now. Not right now, but you know what I mean. But it's basically that's
multitasking on the next level. You're too much of a man to do that. I did not expect you to listen to that at the same time.
No.
No.
but it talks about what leaders need to know about AI in 2025. And he had a couple really interesting points. Basically, are you going to be the next are you the Blockbuster? Or are you the next Netflix? And this is how even the book starts. Talk about Blockbuster, multi-billion-dollar successful company. And, and then now, like, you can't go and rent videos at a store anymore. It's just, that's way in the past. And about the shift to Netflix and the streaming services and things like that, just showing how this technology changes. But the other thing is, a couple things that he said in the podcast is, a job is nothing more than the skills you apply in the process you follow. And basically, I think a lot of it is, a part of our jobs is applying the AI as a tool to our jobs, and making that a lot faster. And then also, the other thing he said, AI is a tool, not an end destination. I know a lot of people, okay, we need to be an AI company. We need to do this. Well, what does that mean? And to me, it's like, if you're a company, and here's an analogy I heard yesterday, and this is actually good to credit to my wife. She came up with this. 100 years ago, you milked a cow to get, if you needed milk, what did you do? Someone milked a cow by hand in a bucket, and then you get your milk. And then what happened? We had these automatic milking machines. So still, someone had to put on the milking machines. I grew up on a farm. I did this every day for like 15 years of my life. And then the milking machine would go and you would do that. And then you're now to a point where we're getting robotic milkers. So, but at the end of, and the cows go in the stall, the robots hook it up. It's really cool. If you ever get a chance to see it, you should. But at the end of the day, what are we doing? I want a glass of milk, and it still comes from a cow. It's all of this process, and this is part of our job. And AI is accelerating how the jobs are getting done. It's changing the context. But at the end of the day, your job is still the job. So that's not changing. It's AI being applied to it. So AI is not going to take your job. It's going to change your job. But again, it's all about the skills you're applying and the process you follow. The process is changing, and maybe some of the skills as well. So that, again, AI is the tool, not the destination.
Yeah. And you share that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you talk now. I've been blabbering.
No, it's fine. Because you shared this with me, and I listened through this as well. And what I took from it is all the examples that he gives on the business leaders that have been in real predicaments where they're facing bankruptcy. They have a lock situation in a culture they don't know, in a situation they can't handle, and they're looking at closing their business down. And they reach out to him, or in some way they talk to Geoff, and he says, well, have you asked AI? And then with a very clever and very thoughtful and very thorough prompt, they're actually able to navigate some of these business challenges just by that prompt. And it blows my mind now how little I've done in the past. Now, I've said this multiple times. If you're not ashamed of the code you wrote a year ago, you haven't had any progress. That very much applies to AI, and the time span is a week. I can't believe I tried to solve the things I solved last week with my head. Now that you have Copilot, GitHub Copilot up and running. I have ChatGPT, and I have a bazillion chats going, and we have so many things on the go. Business strategy, prepping for meetings, making my own visual brand. There's so many things going on. And I can't believe I didn't understand this way of using it before, because what I learned from this is his approach to using AI to enhance your own mind, right?
Yeah.
So he has a framework, and it calls it CRIT.
Yeah.
Context, role, interview, task. So you build the prompt this way. You give it a context. So I'm a Power Platform consultant. I work with Power Pages. That's my expertise. I'm an MVP, travel the world, blah, blah, blah. Role, your role as a attendee at these events.
Yeah.
You want to learn from me. Now give me 3 to 5 interview questions to enable me to solve the task of forming my content in a way that you can adapt to. Or I have a meeting, this and this is the context. Ask me questions to make me smarter. I want to be able to think more strategically when I'm in meetings. I can't ask ChatGPT to give me the solutions to questions I get in meetings. I have to be able to think that, and I want to be better at it. I'm using it as a tool to help me expand and grow my mind. That is what I've unlocked. So the last few weeks I've been just, it's fantastic. I'm blown away by it.
Yeah, and basically it comes down to his whole thing. Geoff Wood's thing is use AI as a thought partner, and that's what I've been doing with it's as opposed to like exactly what you said. Or you're the thought leader, and it's your thought partner. It's the person you bounce ideas off. I mean, I still encourage people to do that. Like I do that all the time. Bounce ideas off real people, but this is also, it adds another context, gives you another avenue, and it just even produces information of trying to solve. I forget the context. I was trying to solve another problem, and it came back with a solution for me that I didn't even really think of, and I'm like, wow. So we'll.
But don't you want to? Because that's when I stop. Because I don't want that. And I've explicitly told it not to do that. I want it to teach me to evolve my brain to the point where I can think of the other thing, right? Because if you constantly ask it to give you the answers, what are you going to do? You're going to become lazy and your brain is going to shut off, because that's what the brain does, because it will optimize for the easiest path of least resistance. So and it's hard. It is now very taxing for me to use ChatGPT, because suddenly there's an added layer of always accumulating knowledge. I'm pushing myself. I'm stretching my brain. It's become a full experience for me. So I'm now kind of conscious when I have the mental capacity to go in and work with it, because suddenly it takes more, because if it just gives you the answers, well, it's nothing, right? So, but what I do recognize is that when I can ask that, I don't ask you as much. Because before I would ask you, or I would ask a friend, or ask someone else, I'm looking into this problem. Am I seeing the full picture? Can you see what's wrong with this? I'm experiencing this is really weird. Or I'm going into this meeting. Do you want to have a bit of a call before, so we can kind of just give each other a little boost and a little context here? No. Now I find myself doing that on my own with ChatGPT, and I really don't want anyone to interfere with that process, because now we have a thing going. Does that make me more isolated?
That's a good question. And I just wanted to go to your first point about giving the answer. And I totally agree. It's like, oh, there's the answer. Why didn't I think at that moment? But then there's also, hey, I think it's more, the benefit is, did you think about this? And I'm like, I did think about that. But now that you say it that way, this triggers a thought in my brain. Oh, but maybe I won't go it that way, but maybe I can take a little bit of that idea, formulate it with my own ideas, and come up with something new. This to me is the huge benefit. But in terms of isolation, you're right. You look at social media, right? We're just, going on the different social medias, and like, oh, I don't need to ask somebody. I can go and find some of this information on my own. I mean, that's part of the community as well, but that's definitely food for thought. Are we going to have a closer relationship with ChatGPT or Copilot than we actually are with other people? And this is what I think I encourage. We still need to have those conversations, but maybe we're better prepared with these conversations as well, saying, hey, I did this thing with ChatGPT. It came up with these ideas. You're a real human. What do you think of this plan, kind of thing? I mean, not for every case, but this could be part of I think we need to include our own humans in our loops to make this really effective.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I mean, so just to kind of keep track of the things, because we're going to go way over this time. So, because we have enough content to go once a week or more often. So we're trying to squeeze it in. You'll get long episodes. That's just a benefit for you. Because I saw Femke Cornelissen, she posts all the time on LinkedIn and this time she was publishing a prompt sheet.
Yes.
Prompt cheat sheet that she came up with, just a one pager. It was just really good, really helpful. But the funny part is, now that I'm that I'm using ChatGPT all the time, actually I just finished my own and I asked it to kind of, because I was all into the crit, there's so many prompt frameworks that I said, give me the 5 most popular frameworks that I need to kind of get the broadest picture, and from what you know about me, the 5 prompt techniques that I should be using more, give it to me in a framework that I can easily remember, and put it up as a desktop background. I can put it on my, my laptop desktop. And it went, oh, okay. And then it just created one back and forth a little bit. And now I have it as a desktop screen. So, I mean, this is very much, it's so fun to see things that pop up that, give it like, oh yeah, I just did that. All right. I kind of feel like, yeah, I'm on the same level as Femke Cornelissen now. Oh, look at me. But then I look at her next post and I go, no, I'm way off. I'm way behind. But I think also that's one thing, I ranted to you earlier this week that I'm like, I feel like I'm so behind. I'm not doing it right. Everyone's just ahead of me. And just look at my LinkedIn. Everyone's just getting it, and I'm not feeling it. And you went, yeah. And 99% of the world have barely even touched it. It's just in our bubble. It's just we're the 1% of people that get this. And because we are surrounded by other people in our little echo chamber, it feels like we're falling behind. But of course, talk to friends and family, you realize that no, actually, it's just our little bubble.
Yeah. And you talk about and maybe I'm kind of jumping around, but you talked about using the Copilot, and I think this ties in, but my wife sent me this prompt that she did, and she has, I think a lot of people have the full Microsoft, the Copilot Studio, where she put this in, and her prompt was, based on previous chats, please summarize my personality. And it came back. It just sort of blew us away of how that kind of nailed it, but it was very positive. So she followed it up with, wow, that sounds very positive, but can you give me some critical feedback, things I need to work on? And holy cow, it nailed it. It popped back with things that, you're a little this and a little bit too much. So maybe this is something, Ulrika, you might not want to do if you want to hear the Ulrika truth.
Yeah. Nope. And I've seen variations of this. And I think that was a very simple prompt, but I've also seen the internet is full of these where, you have this really deep and really thought and crafted prompt that will give you the things that you don't know about yourself. So tell me the 5 biggest lies that I'm telling myself and why I'm telling myself these lies and what would happen if I dare to face reality. And there's always kind of a bit of a caveat going, make sure you're ready and only put this in if you are actually really ready for the result and that you have time by yourself to process what it comes back with, because this will give you the truth. And it's a bit done. And I'm not done it because I know myself well enough to know I'm not ready for it.
Yeah, and the thing is, because that's the thing, AI doesn't care. It doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the episode title. AI doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. It's an internet bully. No. All
right, I like that. Sorry.
Yeah, let's try to keep track of things here. Okay, so all of this is very, I think it's valuable, not just for us, but for other people, I hope. But there are also news and updates in terms of the technologies. So for instance, you have what's new in Copilot Studio, the April version. We're now in the middle of May, so maybe a bit behind. But actually for April, the computer use for Copilot Studio agents, now new limited research preview. And Charles Lamanna says, if a person can use an app, the agent can too. So, I mean, this is, like you said last time, RPA for agents and copilots. And so it's very interesting to see the two worlds merge together.
I've signed up for it. I haven't got a response if I'm in or not. You need a US-based tenant, which I have set up, or the US-based preview tenant. So I'm curious I'm able to set up that tenant in my environment, but I'm not. Well, we'll see. And I'll hopefully report back.
Yeah. And there's new graph connectors, and you have advanced approvals for agent flows. So it's very interesting. Jesus. When they unlock that, the advanced approvals, wow. And you have the reasoning and you have the transparency to see what it does. Yes. Copilot Studio support for customer managed keys. We've talked about that before. And a few other things. So make sure to check what came out of April in terms of news and updates for Copilot Studio. And also we had BAIL, which used to be called, what did we used to shorten it for? BizApps
Launch Event.
I know. So Microsoft Business Applications Launch Event, that's what it stands for, BAIL. But we used to shorten it for something else. Can't remember what it was. And I saw a really cool demo from Kendra, which blew my mind. It has to do with enhanced testing capabilities in Copilot Studio. Okay, so what she shows is, and this is just, I get so excited about this. I get excited about everything, but this is really cool. So she creates an agent, and then she configures it, and that's one part of her demo. And then she goes in and she says, all right, so let's start testing it. And then, of course, you can test it in the interface by using chatting with it, but it's an agent. It should be able to go off and do things on its own. So what you can actually do now is you can say, so we need some testing. Can you create tests for you? And then it does. And then not only that, but you can say, nice test. I love it. Can you now produce test data so that I can test you using your test data that you created on the test you created to test that you work? Yeah, sure. It does that too. And I'm like, I'm blown away. It's just an inception thing. And Kendra is also just freaking great presenter. And so it just blew my mind. So test and debugging agent actions in Copilot Studio, people. Automatic testing. And also that brings me to vibe coding, because something you said, we talked about vibe coding. This is a few weeks back. Mm-hmm. You said, well, with vibe coding comes the throwaway app mentality, right? So you can create an app in a week because people go, oh, how are you going to maintain it? Because it's so crap at maintenance. So you go in and edit one thing and it ruins the whole thing. Well, why would you need to maintain it if you could just create one new one just as easily? And not only that, but then we'll bring in all the new frameworks and all the updated versions of everything. As long as you have the testing so that you're able to test thoroughly, that it works the same way as the other one, that it handles data the same way, it's just as secure, just as accessible. If all of those tests in place, why wouldn't you just create a new app? And I think testing, just by thinking through that scenario, testing is going to be so important going forward. So if you're a techie and you wonder where you're going to put your money and what you're going to do next, automated testing is just, I would put my money on that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And like not only just the data and the usability, but security pen testing. I see if you have if you're in IT and security right now, I mean, start looking for mansions and yachts, because I think this is going to be such a highly.
I wish I understand security. I wish I understood security. I would be so rich.
Yeah, but I could also see it being a pretty high stress job as well.
You're saying I don't handle stress very well?
I don't know.
I'm just kidding. All right. So trying to jump a little bit around here to see so that we both have things in here, but I think we can just talk to all of this, both of us. So I looked at a few AI things that inspired me this month by Charles Lamanna. Every month now he comes out with a new article about things he is inspired by. And this time it was very much about A2A framework from Google that allows you agent to agent interaction.
Yeah.
Did you read anything about this?
I didn't go too deep into that, but I've heard a few things. It's sort of, but it makes sense, right? Like industry standards, like USB-C, I think is the analogy they're using a lot with MCP. At our house, we're primarily, in terms of our phones, we are an Apple house. And I know there's this whole Android versus Apple, but now we're in the transition of, some of us in our house are still using the Lightning cables. We got new iPads that use USB-C. I know we're merging to USB-C, but it's just sort of like you have all these different cables and connectors on just your mobile devices. But now, that's what I like to see with these agents and these frameworks is, now we can actually connect things together a lot more easier and use the right tool for the right job. If Google's got something that works better than Microsoft, well, why don't we use the Google piece, but we can still use our other Microsoft pieces as well?
Right. And so this is much larger than just different partners partnering up. So what Google has launched is a A2A, agent to agent framework that everyone can use. And I think this is also talking to just what you said, the DVD or the, you know, it were in so many places where you had to choose what to do, Angular or React, right? And then someone wins at the end. But actually, this is really quick because Google was on the ball and they just said, well, we got this framework. Everyone subscribed to it overnight, it seems. Everyone's embracing it. And now with MCP servers, so just to kind of explain to people how this scenario enables us to do is that now from Copilot Studio, you can create an agent with an MCP server that can connect to anything. So it's a connection hub that allows you to connect to anything you want. You can then have an agent to agent connection that allows you to connect your agent to other agents on other services or providers. And now look at Mastercard has now also released an agent API, which allows you to perform credit card transactions. So actually now you can potentially create the agent that, and you says, you know what, I want to go on all expenses paid a weekend or week somewhere. Just give me this travel, just book everything for me. Travel, and then it can actually go through and do it, because up until this point, we haven't been able to do the transactions yet. But now with MCP and A2A framework, we can.
Amazing. Scary.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Would you do it?
No, I would not hand over my credit card to AI. I say that this week, maybe next week would be different. Because I do a lot of my own travel planning and everything like that. Now, and maybe this is talk about the travel, and I'm not, this goes away from the A2A framework and the MCP stuff, but just for quick, I did actually Copilot said, go through my emails, find my hotel reservations, my flight, and give me a travel sheet. I always do a travel sheet to stick on the fridge so my family knows where to find me. And it went out and did it almost perfectly. And it just blew me. It took me 5 seconds as opposed to the 20 minutes it normally takes me. So
yeah, and I think also this is from when I say, oh, do you want to just have a simple prompt and have it pay for you? Of course you wouldn't. But I'm planning an interrail trip down through Europe with my kids this summer, right? And I'm giving it so many instructions, and we had a very good conversation where it's still not, you know, me and ChatGPT. It's still not finished with the planning, but I've told it, I want to go see cities that are friendly towards tourism, but not tourist destinations. I would like to sleep at hotels with 3 stars, not above this rate. Once we have that in place, I honestly, I don't think I would have any reservations saying, this is my hotels.com credentials. Feel free to make bookings fully refundable on my behalf and send me back the full travel artillery. Give me the plane, the train ticket I would need for me and my kids to go from Oslo to whatever destinations we planned, and show me what that price is and book me a full refundable ticket. That I would actually be comfortable with, strangely.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Because you've given it the framework and the guardrails, you've given it the governance around that. So yeah, I'd be on board with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we need to do with everything. Yes. You know, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
very important.
Yeah, but it's the same as handing your credit card over if you have an executive assistant kind of thing, right? Book me my flights. Or I used to but what scares me is because maybe it's a little bit, I had a project once, I had to fly to Winnipeg from Ottawa. For those of you who live in Canada, Winnipeg to Ottawa would probably be like a 2-hour direct flight, basically. But my customer had said, oh, we'll book your flights for you. Yeah, sure. Just let me know. And to save money, they put me on a milk run. I went from Ottawa to Toronto to Thunder Bay to Sault Ste. Marie to Winnipeg. It took me all day to do a 2-hour flight. So after that, I'm like, no, I book my own travel. So yeah, if an AI agent did that to me and all over the place, then I'd have trust issues, which I still do. But if I give it the parameters, and this is what you said, I kind of did a similar thing, gave it parameters. I want direct flights. I want this. Give me the links of what's available. And then it's amazing. And you can feed it different. And it even sees, if you watch the reasoning in ChatGPT on one of the models, you can see it thinking. And it said, okay, checking kayak.com, checking Expedia, checking this site. It's going through. It's basically doing what I would do, but it's doing it. So yeah. But yeah, looking forward. So we'll hear in an episode after the summer how your adventure went. when you end up with your kids somewhere in a country in Africa we've never heard of before. But, you had a good time.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll discover a new continent. Who knows?
Yeah.
Copilot sure does. But have you seen, because I love it when it kind of talks about our conversation in third person, when you go use one of the reasoning models and then you ask it something, it has to go out and think, and then send it a little box appear when it says, so she asked you to, so you now have to do, and it has a conversation with itself about our conversation in third person, and then that disappears, and then suddenly it gives me my answer back, and I go,
who are you talking to?
Who are you? Yeah, who are you? But of course, that's orchestration, right? That's when you see the transparency into the agent to agent capabilities. That's because you have one agent or one set of one model which is really good at this, and you have another model where it's really good at this, and it's using the different models, and it has to have an interaction between them into the chat experience that I'm having. So it's kind of keeping track of what it's doing on our behalf, and then it's coming back with something. So I just love seeing that, and I love how much more transparency there is now compared to what it used to be.
And I think that helps calm us, gives us alleviate some of those trust issues. So it's like, okay, it is following the same path I would, or, oh, I didn't realize that this site existed and it's doing it. But yeah, it is kind of weird seeing that thing talk to itself as it's figuring something out. But again, it's watching a genius at work, I suppose.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So just to close this A2A protocol and MCP stuff off, this week, Charles Lamanna actually announced that Copilot Studio and AI Foundry will now support A2A, building on the MCP support we announced earlier this spring. So if you have a requirement regarding that, please check that out. We'll put links in the show notes. And to close off the whole AI Copilot 40 minutes rants you've had so far, we have a post on LinkedIn from Thomas van der Waard. Is it Waard or Ward? Ward? I
would say Thomas van der Waard, but
Ward. Yeah, okay, fast. So that sorry, my mistake. Should Copilot Studio replace Power Automate or stay in its own lane?
It depends.
Chicken. Oh, you don't want to go there, do you? It's a really weird post. Have you seen it? Because it's just putting, it's very long. There's few words, but
like
you can, it's like a poem, but it's also, it resonated with me because I think that's what my mind does when I think about these things. It's like, because you go from one thing to another, and then you go back, and then you move forward, and then you go to the left, and then to the right, and then suddenly you go, oh, I landed where I started.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I love seeing posts like this. It kind of makes you think, should it not? And I can't say either way at this point. Can't.
No, but I think it kind of goes back to a little bit what we talked about last week with Anna's post and her flow chart of, do you use an agent, an automation, or you just keep doing things manually? And then, I find those are really helpful. But again, with all these other tools and stuff, I think it's going to blend together where, even I did a post on, it was basically Power Automate, but I used AI Builder process. It wasn't calling an agent per se. It was using AI. But that might be part of it. We're building Power Automate, but we might be calling agents as part of that, or the agents are calling Power Automate flows. So that's still part of our structured processing, but we still can incorporate other agentic, ideas into this. So my answer would be, it's going to be both. I think it's going to merge into one thing down the road, but who knows?
I think you're right, because I think there is specificity needed in some processes where you can't allow the LLM to go free. The generative AI cannot just work on probability, which it is doing. So you need to be specific enough, and it has to do with security, has to do with, GDPR, sensitive things, right? You need to make sure that it's doing it correctly. So that's when you're going to need it. And then for other things, you can allow it to just roam free. Right. So you want to move on to the rest of the things, because there are other things happening in the tech realm around Power Platform that does not necessarily touch on AI. You want to go with one of yours first?
Do I have anything? Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, this was a quick. Yeah, I do actually. This is a quick little one that actually it stood out because I was working with, for those of you who do Power Pages or do other development, you probably played with Fetch XML before. And Fetch XML is the querying tool that's part of Dataverse. It's been part of CRM forever. We all talked about how I was there at this, the invention of the internet and all that other fun stuff. But it was interesting because I was using Fetch XML Builder from our tool, from Jonas Rapp, which of course we all should have installed and we use every day. But then there was a whole bunch of new.
Pay for?
Yes, please donate. Buy Jonas a beer or more.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. There was a whole bunch of new link options, which I know were added to Fetch XML, but I didn't really pay much attention to these. But then it came into a case of, okay, I do need to do some inner and outer loops, but it has these other functions like there's not any, not all, exist, match first row using cross apply. I'm like, what are these? I've never knew what these were before. And then thankfully there was a post on LinkedIn by someone I've not heard of before, but hopefully, again, more content's coming from Pranjal Tiwari. And Pranjal, thank you for this post. It was really well written. Basically, he gave a table of the different link type options in Fetch XML, and then basically broke it down and gave kind of applied it to a little bit of how SQL works, which is something way in my background. So it was really interesting. So it's a great post if you're trying to wrap your head around these new Fetch XML, or new. They might have been there for months. I just never really noticed it before. But if you're learning Fetch XML and you need to make Fetch XML dance a little bit, because sometimes you do run into boundaries or some edge cases especially when you're linking other entities, this could probably really get you out of a jam. So yeah, thanks Pranjal for this post.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think even months cut it. I think this is years and time old, because I've had to, the way that I've approached this is if I'm in Fetch XML Builder and I don't get the results that I need, I just play with that. I just go through the list until it gives me what I was expecting to give. And then it's like, oh, so this is an inner. Oh, okay, put inner in there. And then it works. I have no idea why. And so this was just so insightful. I'm like, aha. Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Now I get. Oh,
yep.
Right. Light bulb moment. Still have those. And another light bulb moment, actually, because I saw something that was really weird. So, or not really weird. Okay. So in the Red Cross project, we have something where you have an activity board, and then there's a set of roles that you can fill. Right. So I'm putting on an activity. I need 3 activity leaders. I need 4 volunteers. I need and then as a volunteer, you can go in, you can kind of grab one of those jobs or roles. Now, in Power Pages, imagine, and of course a flow kicks off, and then there's a web API, and we do some, and we kind of just put that volunteer on that spot, and then that's filled. But imagine 2 people doing it at exactly the same time. And we've had that, of course, up, and we've talked to our PO about it, and he said, well, actually, this is not enough of a real thing for us. It's not that high usage of these. So we're going to leave it for now. We're going to revisit it later. And then I talked to a friend of mine, Scott Giroux, a friend of ours, and we talked about transactions. And transactions is, because I'm not a pro developer, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't. And then we left it. And then suddenly there's a video where Scott goes through the principles and the theory behind it. It's videos from Scott usually kind of snappy, and you have but this is a bit more low key, slower music, a bit of low key. So it actually kind of affords you to learn deep learning, and talks about acid test. So atomicity, if one thing fails, then everything rolls back. Consistency, isolation, and durability. So that a transaction can put a lock on something so that the second one has to wait. And it goes through everything from kind of the theory, how it works in practice, how you do this with Dataverse, and also from the Power Pages perspective of how that would work so that you wouldn't have 2 people booking the same ticket at the same time kind of scenario. And it was really insightful. So very good video. And then also the day after I went through that video, I saw a blog post from Kailash Ramchandran. Yeah. Which was handling transaction errors in Dataverse plugins. So having that video and that theory from Scott when I read this blog post, I would not have understood a single thing about this if I didn't have that knowledge fresh in the back of my head of how you can now use transactions in plugins. You have that ability to handle transactions and how you manage errors to kind of alert if you have two things going on at the same time and one fails, then you roll the whole thing back. So it has examples of good bad practices and good best practices for how to do that in a plugin, which is really, really cool and insightful now that I understand more of it. Two very good resources for you guys to check out.
Yeah, this problem came up to me a few years ago because this was before the invention of auto number, like the auto number field in tables and Dataverse, because there's things we always used to, want to auto number things. And there was a time where the only auto numbers that were available out of the box were for like invoices, quotes, and orders. Everything else you had to build your own auto number. So you think, oh, no problem. I'll just create a classic workflow that just increments the number and pulls from a table. But then you realize you have multiple people that are putting in, like, let's say event registrations, for example, registration 001, 02. You have multiple people doing that, or even worse from a Power Pages site where multiple people are registering. You end up with duplicates out the yin yang that are using the exact same number. And it's crazy. So I remember we developed a plugin to try to get around this. And even then it wasn't 100% bulletproof because at that time, the idea of transactions really wasn't built into plugins. So it was just sort of like, okay, how do we get around this? And of course, you start dealing with people that have an SQL background. In SQL, this was something that's been there since day one, like going back into the 90s. Doing locks on tables and things like that. So you talk to a developer, well, just use a SQL lock. Well, we can't. Exactly. We can't because we can't do that. We don't have that ability. So now that this is, 10 years too late, but at least it's there now going forward. Because sorry. Yeah. So, but basically, but to me, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, we can finally solve that auto number problem from 10 years ago, which is no longer a problem because we have auto number fields now.
But also you have to recognize the opposite, because what Dataverse is actually really good at is doing multiple things at once. That means it scales and it's performant and it can handle so many workloads at the same time. So it's one of those things where, sure, you had that in SQL 10 years ago, but then look at what Dataverse is really good at. So it's always a trade-off. And I think that's going back to what you said earlier. It depends. It depends on your use case. It depends on what you're building. It depends on what is the most critical thing for you. And also the skill set and the ecosystem and everything. You have to take everything into account to find the right solution, right?
Yes.
All right. So we're closing in on the hour now. But we have a few other things we want to discuss. So let's just talk about... Can I talk about one thing, please?
It's half your show. You talk about whatever you want.
So, the thing we talked about from the release wave, where you can trace one flow from start to finish, and you can see all the child flows and all the other things that are related to it.
I want to let everybody know before we started recording, Ulrika said she had a monster and something else. So, but I know what you're talking. The thing is,
not something else, but it's now live and I tried it out and it's just, I almost cried when I saw it. It was so beautiful. You just go in through this interface and it's the generate process maps for multi-flow automations. You go in through the interface, you choose a starting flow, and AI goes through and it maps out all the things that this flow is related to. It tells you the child flows, it tells you other flows that are updating the same thing, and it gives you a visual map where you can follow from one end to the other. I mean, come on! It's so beautiful. And I shared it to the whole team and they went crazy. It's so good.
It's funny because
I love it.
It was popping up in my Teams, which I know was well out of your regular working hours. And I'm like, oh, what's the, and then you were just sort of like, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. So I was like, okay. And then I looked at like, okay, that is cool.
That is so cool. And it's so helpful. Imagine the documentation, just having that visual where you can see things from end to end as a note in your documentation. I mean, it's such a lifesaver. And then it includes a whole whack of other things that you can see at the same time. And also I dove into the automation center, which allows you to see across, in your environment, all the flows that fail, what kind of capacity, and all these things. You get an automation center now, which is just beautiful. I love it. Oh, I just had to talk about that.
Yep. Cool. All right. Going through. Okay. So there's I'm trying to think what else is there. Oh yeah, another interesting small little thing. Our friend Michael Roth from Germany. Hey Mike, how's it going? We'll talk about turning managed to unmanaged in terms of environments. And it's interesting because as I was putting my presentation together for DynamicsCon about Power Platform pipelines, you need managed environments. And I thought I should put a slide of what that means. And I never considered turning it on. Do you really want to turn it off? Because of course it gives you a lot more features and functionality. The caveat to that is all the users that are part of that environment need to have the premium licenses, which I think in a lot of our cases in enterprise projects, that's not a problem because they have those premium licenses. But from other projects where they don't, they're using the per app license or a lower level of licensing, then you don't have access to those managed features, and you might not need them. That's fine. So, but then how do you flip an environment from managed to unmanaged? And if someone just asked me, I would have just assumed, oh, just go in and unclick the button you did to turn it on. But that's not the case. I didn't know that. And Michael goes through how to use PowerShell to go through and flip your managed environment back to unmanaged. It was a question he did the research, he shared with the community. This again is another example of sharing, saving keystrokes. If one person has that question, probably 100 other people have that question. And by answering it once in a blog post like this, you've answered it for everybody else. And we learned something I didn't know. So thanks, Michael, for that post.
Yeah, 100%. I love this. So easy. And so something you didn't know.
Yeah.
Very cool. So do you want to close this off with one of the last ones here? Or do you want to go directly to the events?
Yeah. This is, so I did a podcast. So there's about three things I really want to touch on here briefly. I did a podcast with Griffin Lickfeld, which you have the link there. It was definitely a lot more personal to me than a lot of the other talks. I am leading into a talk at Dynamics Minds in 2.5 weeks, about burnout and powerlifting and mental health. So I did talk quite a bit about a burnout that I had in the past. We did see a link from one of our friends, and I did ask for permission if we could share this. This is from Rebecca Albers, who's a great friend of both of ours, a really great lady. But she just basically kind of laid out the line, said, I've taken on too much. I need to scale back. So it goes to show if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling burnt out in the community, you're not the only one. I think all of us at some point will have felt different levels of that. So there's no reason to not feel bad about it or feel ashamed about that or anything. It's something we all go through. And again, this is where we as a community can definitely help each other out as well. And sometimes it's just sharing your stories and just knowing you're not the only one. And what are some of your coping mechanisms to work through this? And it's sometimes the best medicine is just to take a step back. You don't need to go to every event. You don't need to post a video every day or do a blog post every week. And it is a lot of work. There's certain things like I said, what I do for me is just being in the gym. Working out for me is my mental release and mental help. It just keeps my mind settled, allows me to focus. So with that session, with what Rebecca posted and with the talk with Griffin Lickfeld as well, these things all kind of came together, sort of sharing a bit of my story, if you're interested. But again, if you do want to talk about this, whatever, reach out to friends or come talk to me at some of the events. Speaking of overdoing it, I am going to a whole crap load of events in the next 4 and 5 weeks. But
It's like my dad always say, do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah, exactly. But
because we don't lead the way on this one.
Definitely not. So, but anyways, I did want to kind of close out on that, despite all of this stuff with the all this tsunami of AI information, trying to figure out our way, everything like that. We do have a support. We do have a support community around us. So definitely, take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if anyone ever needs to talk about anything, we're here, and we're not that different in private that we are, because we're very much what we're like here. So just reach out if you need to chat. And also, we recognize, especially new MVPs, there are some groups in our community that we pay extra attention to, and young MVPs is one of them, where we know that the first year is usually when people find it the hardest and people crash. So we do really recognize that as well. And I also wanted to throw in one of your links that you had in the beginning from Louise Fries, where she talks about how to survive a conference as an introvert, because I think that actually fits very well into this, where she talks about what it's like to be an introvert at events like this, and actually a lot of good ways you can, actual things you can apply to manage it. If that applies to you. So things like, it's not just pick your social moments, divide and conquer, plan your energy, not just your sessions. And also, it's okay to say that you need space. Don't apologize for that. You're not the only one. And we know a lot of people in our community that are introverts as well as extroverts. I mean, I think it's kind of half and half, and you have someone who's both in the middle. So, I mean, if you don't feel like social settings fill you with energy, but it costs you more energy than it gives, maybe you're an introvert, and that's okay, as long as you're aware of it and you know how to handle it so that you have a great experience and everyone else has a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for bringing that link back up, because that was at the top there, but it is, that's the thing. You go in and you don't have to go to every single session. That's fine. Like, go to the ones you want to do, or like, what we do, and we're at events together. We actually divide and we bring it together. Sometimes we do a podcast on that. We hope to do that again soon. But again, it's like, and a lot of these, here's a secret. A lot of these sessions will actually be repeated at other events. So if you miss, someone's session at a particular event, and they're going to be at another one, chances are they're going to be doing very similar or the same session again. So you don't, so there's a lot there, but just, conferences can be overwhelming. By day 3, your head is buzzing with new ideas, but you could also be, okay, I'm done with people for a few days. I know I get like that.
Yeah, and also usually conferences will share the slide decks for all the sessions afterwards. So as an attendee, even though you didn't see the session, you probably get access to the slide deck. So that's also a way to spread your knowledge. And a little other secret that we can share is that you don't see it, but all of us sneak out and all of us take time. I know so many people in the community. I know more people that do that than people that don't. You usually won't see every one of us the whole day. Just don't. Because everyone's at sessions, you don't realize who takes time to go at the expo hall for a bit of peace and quiet during sessions, for instance. A very good way to, or stay in a very good conversation. Just skip a session, stay in that conversation and have that good connection instead. It's so important. Just do what you need to do to get it.
We have a whole list of events, but I mean, we do that, and these are all available. But we do want to call out for the European Power Platform Conference to use Boost as a discount code. So if you've not got your ticket yet, Ella reached out to ask us to kind of say, hey, we have a discount code for you guys. I forget what it was. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I had it somewhere. Sorry.
I thought we put it in the show notes. Let's put it like that.
Perfect. Yeah.
And also, our next episode's going to be May 28th. And yeah, isn't that right?
Yikes. Already the end of May? Yes. And that is going to be, I'm going to be at Dynamics Minds that day. So again, people sneak out to take a break. I'm going to sneak out and record a podcast episode. I'm not presenting that day, so it works out good. So yeah, I'll be able to kind of report from the field, so to speak.
Sounds awesome.
Cool. All right. So I think everybody's brain is melted by this point, or hope your commute was good, your drive was good, your gym session was good, your walk was good. Thank you for allowing us to be part of the conversation and some of the conversations you're probably having with your colleagues and friends all about this wonderful world of technology and AI that we live in.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please make sure you share it with your friends and colleagues in the community. And be sure to leave a rating or a review on your favorite streaming service. That makes it easier for others to find us. Follow us on social platforms and make sure you don't miss a single episode. Thank you for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your host, Ulrika Akabek and Nick Dolman. See you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news and updates.